Perfect. Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for a nice sunny day down in Brighton. Like the nights are getting longer, and so yeah, fair play for coming out to you and joining us for a bit of learning. And got an awesome talk tonight from Jonny, but we'll get into that a little bit later. As always, this. Me and Ryan do work for Microsoft, and all of you work for companies or may or may not. Sharing opinions, right? Like, speak freely, speak openly, and if me and Ryan say anything to you, saying, "Hey, I spoke to this guy at Microsoft and he said this," we'll deny, and it doesn't work. We deny everything. So, like, just take that as our own opinion tonight, and we're purely being honest with you. Over to you.
If this is the first time to one of our meetups, we always run a diversity charter. Everyone's welcome, basically. If you don't think that any of these things are being upheld, please let us know. But yeah, this is an important kind of fundamental of our group. So tonight we're going to just do quick introductions now. Talk about who Silicon Brighton is, if you've not come across them before. Jonny's going to do a great chat, and then we're going to do a quick little quiz with some prizes, and then just kind of mop up networking, a bit more pizza and beer, and kind of exit from there. So relatively tight schedule, but yeah, it might be a little bit fluid in terms of the breaks and everything else.
And as always, we're in an amazing venue. A couple of you commented on it tonight and saying how fantastic like the space is. This is provided completely free to us, and the pizza is sponsored half through Runway East as well. So a big thank you to them for helping us out there and helping the Silicon Brighton team. If you're in the market for looking for like office space, hot desking, that sort of stuff, do check out the guys at Runway East because they do a lot for the community. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Cam to do the spiel on Silicon Brighton, who are an amazing organisation that help us run these amazing events and many more. So over to Cam.
Thank you very much. A double. Thank you very much, guys. Cheers, Jack and Ryan. Yeah, I work for Silicon Brighton, who Sussex. Oh, I think you're. Could you turn your mic? Yeah, nice. We host lots of meetup groups, just like Sussex Azure user group, all across Brighton and Hove, making us the host of the digital tech sector in Brighton. We are also hosting our very own conference for the first time, as well as our meetups. We're calling this the Meetup of all meetups. We are also offering a 50% discount code with that SAUG code just there. It takes the ticket to half price, and then half of that ticket value will be sent straight back to Sussex Azure Group to fuel more things like beer and pizza, I imagine, which seem to be in limitless supply, but who knows, you can always have a bit more. But yeah, it's going to be a brilliant day. We've got loads of people down exhibiting, talking, and it's just, yeah, going to be a great community day. Speaking of those other meetups, we support loads of different ones here. If you haven't heard of Silicon Brighton before, you haven't maybe heard of some of these groups, we've got software, hardware, sort of loads of cloud-based groups as well as a lot in web development as well. So plenty of stuff to get your teeth stuck into. We want to say a huge shout out to our supporters too. Runway East is also one of the supporters. They host loads of meetups here, completely free of charge. So we're massively appreciative to them. Want to shout out James Chase as well, one of our sponsors, Plus Accounting, and also More Law. We've got a link tree here as well, which gives access to our Slack channel as well. It's a vibrant community place. You can exchange job offers and talk about things within your community, even if you're just outside of work. It's just a really nice social place. There was one more thing I wanted to say, but I've forgotten what that is. So I think that's me. Thank you very much, guys.
No worries. And yeah, thanks again to the Silicon Brighton team. Yeah. We couldn't do this without them. And I don't know how we did it before, to be perfectly honest. Me and Ryan were just talking about this. Just a quick note on Evolve as well. Get yourself signed up. I will be there. I'm pretty sure Ryan will be there as well, potentially.
I will be in Italy.
He'll be in Italy. He won't be there, but I'll be there. But come along, it's down at the Brighton Dome. It's going to be an amazing day. Lots of great meetups, lots of events. I've been chatting to Steve and the team about all the stuff that's going to be going on the day. Just be there, right? I think that the team have made it super accessible. And if any of you are wondering what it's going to be like, come and reach out, come and speak to one of us, come and speak to one of the team. It would be great to see as many people there as possible.
Another sponsor that's helping us run the evening is an MSP called Servant. So I've worked with Des and the team from Servant for a number of years now. They only work in Microsoft Azure, so relatively small company, but fast growing, specialized in things like landing zone, DC migrations, a bit of app mod as well. So if you've not heard of them and have that need, check them out. They're a good bunch of guys. and girls.
Slides, so you might want to
Oh, is there? Oh, okay. We'll just zip on. We'll links and stuff like that will be available afterwards. This is the kind of stuff that they typically specialize in terms of cloud transformation. I spoke to them yesterday, and I said one of them has to come and do a talk at our group, technical talk. They've got a really good bunch of architects, so hopefully one of them will be down soon. But they are based in Glasgow, so it's a bit of a trek. Here's some of their customers, and yeah, check them out. Website and link is all there. So dates for 2025. So we've run 2 meetups already this year. We're kind of going every other month at the moment where we can. We still haven't got talks defined for the other ones. So we always kind of do a bit of a tout for speakers. If you've got any ideas on what you want to talk about, whether it's something technical that you've done, could be something like that, or a project that's gone well, or a project that's not gone well. You tried to do something Azure, went terribly, but you learned loads and you made it work by persevering and everything else. That's the stuff that we want to hear about. So yeah, just feel free to approach me or Jack with any ideas if you want to speak.
And just on that one, actually, we've got a Jonny is a fellow member. Jonny's normally sitting where you guys are, and like Jonny put his hand up and said, "Yeah, I'd be interested in doing a talk." So Jonny is a prime example of that. Also, we've got another member, Michael Duddington, who's joined us in the past, who's going to join us next month to do a talk.
Of course.
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
not next month, but in July.
Yep.
I'm actually going to collab with him because we've recently been chatting about an experience that we've been having with a customer. So we're going to do one on Entra ID and multiple tenancies and when to go multiple tenants and when not to go multiple tenants, which is a common challenge that a lot of organizations go through. So we're going to do a bit of a talk on that. Michael used to work with the Entra product group at Microsoft. So unfortunately on that theme, he was impacted by one of the previous layoffs a long time ago last year. So, you know, he's got some great experiences there on what he's done in that space. We've also got somebody else reached out to us from the Surrey Azure user group who wants to do a talk on deployment stacks, which we can squeeze in at any point. But I think Ryan nailed it. Like if anybody's got any ideas or wants to come and speak about anything, or we want to do like a small lightning talk style event.
I'm open to anything. Like even if you've done something multi-cloud, would be interesting.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
And the experiences between the two. We're quite open. You know, anything. Yeah,
ping us on LinkedIn. Come and chat to us over in person, and we get something arranged.
In terms of getting involved in our group, we've recently set up this WhatsApp community. So there's a few kind of chats on there around announcements about when the next user group meetup is happening, but things about like just random things about like, hey Jack, when's this coming in ALZ, and you know this doesn't really work, or has anybody heard about this? Just this kind of a good chat on there. So please join the WhatsApp group if you can and start getting involved in the chat. So yeah, we've been doing this for I think it's 5 or 6 years now. 2020 maybe we started. We got a load of content on YouTube. So all of our talks are broadcast on our own YouTube page, as well as the Silicon Brighton YouTube page as well. We were just saying that some of the stuff on there is like 5 years old, so don't look at like a new product video from 5 years ago and wonder why it's not there anymore. But we'll have a bit of a cleanse. But some of the stuff on there will be relevant still, and
you'll see some faces in the room, like Steve is on there from when he talked back in September, I think it was a couple of years ago. So yeah, and you know we've got some familiar faces on there. So please, you know, there's prime examples of people getting involved from the community and like sharing their experiences. So please do, if you've got any ideas, please feel free to come and share.
And with that, I think we'll hand over to Jonny to do his talk and demo on automation. Cheers.
All right, cheers.
Been living in Brighton for about 10 years. Been using computers professionally for probably about that time. I was actually say 10 years. That's actually 26. No, living in Brighton for about 15 years. Been working in like the tech been for about 12, I'd say. So yeah, I have a lovely partner, a lovely kid, very, very happy lot, and my beautiful spaniel, Rudy. So yeah, that's us. So yeah, tonight we're going to be running a bit of a hackathon. So hopefully everyone kind of brought your laptops. If not, we'll kind of team up and we'll create something together. But my company, Focus Group, have lovingly sponsored a prize for what we say is going to be like the most creative outcome for tonight. So this is for people in the room. But Focus, I've been working there for about just over 5 years, 6 years, I think. And I've been working in the Cisco and enterprise arm of the business. So businesses from like 500 people up, and working across things from networking to cloud, a little bit of security, but predominantly within automation. Focus have about 20 offices situated throughout the country. And they deal with everything from voice, networking, underlay, obviously overlay, IT services, voice services, energy services. So essentially a lot of services as a MSP. They deal a lot in Azure. So we've got a team that runs like our modern workplace teams, cloud team, and even now like our DevOps and infrastructure teams that help like automate deployments in public cloud. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today a little bit, I guess. So why do we want to automate? So from left to right in no particular order, we want to reclaim time. Time is spent too often doing manual tasks, and hopefully all these things should kind of ring true as like an obvious statement, but we don't want to spend too much time doing too many things. We want to extend platforms. We want to use the best of products. So we want to make the best of what they can. And when we kind of hit the edge, we want to be able to, extend that platform. Can I do something multiple times that there isn't necessarily a button within the platform to do? We want to create outcomes as like an MSP specifically. When we can sell something, we can also then target to another space to achieve bigger and better outcomes. One of the biggest things, especially is, there are people in the room, Bicep and Terraform, we want to have zero config drift. We like things that are consistent. So when we're looking at automation to apply maybe firewall rule sets across like 100, 2,000 firewalls, or we want to ensure that everything has a tag and maybe you're not using Azure policy, or maybe it's some other different platform like a phone provider or something else. We want to make sure that anytime someone requests a change, that request is mirrored exactly as intended. So from a person standpoint, you want to reduce the risk. You've got less manual input, so can use your time doing bigger and better things. Work smarter, not harder, which is like a big one that Cisco and Meraki say. So yeah, increasing efficiency and all the other different things that are kind of there. So for any of like them, the people kind of work in small teams, which is kind of where I kind of sit. Looking at automation as 5 people with 500 people power, and that's something I kind of say a lot. We can, or I can, or automation can achieve things that you would traditionally see a lot of people having to go out into the field to do, or have to sit a lot of the time clicking to create the same outcome. For people looking why automation would be so useful, it's 24/7. So when we have an alert come in, someone doesn't have to wake up, someone doesn't have to hit the on-call desk. Something can be all the time. So we don't need to just monitor something when it's sunny, when it's rainy, when it's a weekend, when it's off or on. It's 24/7. Blockers. Why wouldn't we automate? So we don't have time. We can't code. And that's a big one, and we see that a lot. And I'm going to show you today how you don't have to code to automate. And actually, Azure is a fantastic place. If you do want to automate Azure, there's even a section on every single resource that says automate. So it's not we can't code. It's not worth the effort, and that's a tricky one. or it will make things too complicated. Yeah, sad but true. There's two valid ones that make me a little bit sad. So there's no API available. That sucks. Or there's no native webhooks or alerts. You can tackle the bottom with the top as long as there is an API. You can poll, but if you're polling 5,000 endpoints and you've got a rate limit, okay, well, it's not going to work as slick. So really, you want alerts. You want something that can send. However, there are ways. No native webhooks or alerts or APIs. We've got web drivers. So the Edge WebDriver, things like Selenium or Beautiful Soup, if you're Python like me, for things being too complicated. Manual processes simply hide complexity. I see that a lot. Very, 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 very technically able people that can do things. If they were written out in code, yes, there's a lot of upfront effort, but you've actually, you've gained a lot. It's not worth the effort. Success is silent and failures are loud. We often see this when something's not working or when something fails. So people approach automation as a fix. If it was looked at in the first outset when someone didn't have the time or didn't have the appetite, whatever. We can't code, like I said before, no problem. And not having the time, that to me makes it a little bit more appealing. So if you don't have the time, you don't have the time to kind of create the outcome. Therefore, so I kind of lost my train of thought. But yeah, not having the time to automate something, meaning that the thing that you're trying to automate is actually going to save you time in the long run. You've kind of fixed your own problem, kind of like, yeah. Anyhow, so the Azure Automation Trio. How can we use Azure to automate? How can we use Azure to solve problems that that we want to fix? So there are three fantastic products: Logic Apps, Automation Accounts, and Function Apps. There are more things. So like I said, each resource has like an automation capability in it. You can set up your own alerts. There are, you can go and create your own coding outside of it. There's app services that can poll APIs and be always on. You could spin up a VM that runs IIS with Python to go and do some stuff. But there are three things I would think of instantly when someone says automation. And then I think, how am I going to achieve that? And I always think back to one of these three. So to the no or low code, Logic Apps. Logic Apps are fantastic at that. So you have from anyone who's used like Power Automate, you've got like that drag and drop flow approach. Fantastic. You also have the ability to code. We'll kind of get into that a little bit when we talk a little bit more about them. Can you script in it? Kind of. You can look at the JSON behind it. And to anyone looking to deploy any of this stuff via infrastructure as code, you can deploy things for Logic Apps with that JSON embedded and go and do more. Logic or complex logic. Yes, you can do logic. If this, then that. Can you do complex logic? No. However, more is coming. So with the newer versions of Logic Apps, you can now even embed things like .NET or Java as well. And can it be an API or can it call APIs? So Logic Apps can be triggered through like a webhook or like an API call, and it can then in turn make some. However, you can't do certain things. You can't like make it always have headers on the inbound or on the outbound. There are things that you can't do. Automation accounts, no code. No, they don't do no code. Low code, I'm going to say yes. So there are elements of the automation accounts that I think are very, very, very appealing for someone that's dabbled a little bit of PowerShell or has a way of writing a little bit of code. I think automation accounts are a fantastic way to kind of take that next step of, I want to have a little bit of code and I want to achieve something. Automation accounts, I think, can do that. You can also, when we're kind of talking about these going down in order, you can compound these. So one can call the other to do the other. So using HTTP as like a mechanism across. Scripted, yes. So automation accounts, you can code. So I'll be showing you one today that built in Python. Logic or complex logic, yes, you've got a full runtime at your disposal. So if you want to use PowerShell or Python, yeah, you can use both of those to go and code your complex logic. And running APIs, yes, kind of, depending on what you want to do, you can trigger it via a HTTP call, for example. However, there is a bit of a startup processing time. Yeah, function apps, no code, low code, no. So there is nothing you need to code to kind of really get started. Scripted, let's go with yes, definitely, because you need to code to get cracking. Complex logic or logic, yes, it can do anything. You've got access to the full runtime and APIs, yes. When I think of running APIs in Azure, logic apps are the first thing that comes to mind. Sorry, function apps are the first thing that come to mind. So logic apps, thinking an alert has been received, extract the subject, call an API. Great example of when I would think I'm going to use this logic app. So something like someone's just opened that door and maybe there's a like a sensor at the top. Sensor sends an alert. Great, cool, alert received by something. Extract the subject. This door, this place, this time. Call a REST API. Maybe you've got a camera right there. Take a screenshot. Fantastic. Logic app. Drag it. 10 minutes, you're done. Fair enough. You want to talk about like availability and all the other different things, but fantastic. Automation accounts. Schedule a PowerShell script, gather VM metrics, then send the data to an API. So because it can run PowerShell and automation accounts can tie into a network, you could kind of pretty much do whatever you want to do. If you wanted to, like I said, yeah, jump into a VM, get some data, call some stuff, send an API. Function apps. Host an API endpoint, accepts CRUD requests, so create, read, update, delete, so all your standard HTTP methods, processes some data, calls loads of APIs, logs the output, returns JSON. So you can kind of see as we're moving across, we're doing more complex things. And although it's not the way that it has to be, and logic apps can definitely do some complex stuff, I do look at it as easy, medium, and hard. With the newer thing, right, easy, medium, hard, you know what I mean. With the newer changes to logic apps and the newer like consumption plans, you can do a lot with logic apps. So big up logic apps. Automation accounts, I think, yeah, you look on a long enough timeline, yeah, maybe they don't have as much foothold as function apps, and maybe it will just become logic and function one day. But yeah, very easy, medium, and hard, and that's the way that we're going to kind of talk about it tonight. So logic apps, this is one. This is what a logic app looks like. So drag and drop workflows. If this, then that style like logic. Low barrier of entry or low bar to entry, whichever way people say that. And 1,400 pre-built connectors. Oh, go back. There we go. So if we're looking at this, just in case you can't see it, this is one of the pre-baked ones that you can get from the Microsoft Docs. It says, check travel time every morning, then go and get the route details with traffic stats, create a variable to store the travel time, and if the travel time exceeds a limit, true or false, send an alert with the updated travel time. Fantastic logic. And someone who's created this, by dragging things together. So if this, then that. So if the travel time is exceeded, then go and do something. So if this, then that. 1,400 pre-built connectors. So there are lots of things logic apps can do. You look at triggers, and then you look at each of the things that happen after it. So the trigger is check a time every day. So the trigger is a schedule. So the things that happen after, there's 1,400 things that you can happen after that are natively built. Some of the newer stuff, like I said, you can run Java or you can run .NET, you can do a lot to kind of extend that. So I'm going to show you this. I'm not going to tie any like cost to it because, to be brutally honest, I don't really know, and it doesn't matter to me as much. But the one I'm going to be showing you tonight is consumption. So not the default option. So I've highlighted the default option as the one that's kind of selected when you kind of go to the Azure portal, new thing. So your consumption plan is shared. So you can have one logic app, or you can have 50 logic apps. They run on the same underlying compute. The networking is public cloud, so no VNet integration. And it's pay per operation. Standard, you get workflow. We've got dedicated compute, so you run like an app service plan underneath, just like an app service. You do have VNet integration because obviously you're running the underlying compute. Makes sense, data centers, wires, and you pay per workflow service plan instance. So you pay for one of these instances, does all of your stuff. App service environment, kind of the exact same, apart from it's per app service for all of your instances, and then hybrid, which is preview, which also is very, very good for those that have on-prem or stuff in other clouds. You can run your logic apps on other different things, so you're running it yourself. So you've got your hybrid workers and all that good stuff. So the example I'm going to show you tonight is hopefully useful for those that have ever created anything in Azure, but we're going to run something called like the resource group cleanup. So every night, this app will delete your dev environment identified by tag and then post a note to Microsoft Teams to notify you of the result. So I'm going to look on the left-hand side. I'm going to transpose that into what you see on the right. So every day at 8 p.m., this logic app is going to run using a managed identity. It is going to look for all of the resource groups and report them back. It does that using an API connection, but essentially there is no credentials for that. It's all via the managed identity. So gets all of that stuff together. Once it's got all of those resource groups, does a little bit of logic, and then we'll delete every resource group. So that one with the number 3, we see dev true. We'll go and delete that, and then it will send a webhook to Microsoft Teams bot. So in this bit, the only bit that you don't kind of see is the logic, so it's kind of hard to draw logic. So in the right-hand side, you can kind of see that. I know it's a little bit small, but yes. So let's do it. This may have sound. If it does, I'm sorry. So going to create a resource group. So with the resource group created, this is where we're essentially going to host all of the resources for the underlying logic app. Yeah, go find a logic app. This is my version of doing a live demo and not relying on the demo gods. I've just got to rely on the internet connection. So multi-tenant logic app. So this was the one that we've chosen. So we don't have the direct VNet integration. We've just got simple stuff. So running everything in Azure UK South. No tags needed on this because it's my quick to live demo. So with this thing created, essentially we've got to do all of those dependent bits that were in that picture. So set up the managed identity, set up some permissions, set up the that Teams bot, get some stuff. So first thing we're going to do is turn on managed identity. So it's a system assigned managed identity. So this essentially allows the logic app to be a thing. Sorry if I'm teaching anyone to suck eggs. So essentially the logic app itself is a thing, and you can then use that thing to create permissions against. Jack will probably do a much better way of explaining managed identity than I have, but that's a good way of looking at it. So quite high permissions for this managed identity. It's going to have contributor access over a subscription, We need that so it can delete essentially quite chunky resources. It can delete anything I put in a resource group. So with that thing created, we're going to jump back to Logic Apps, which now has this permission. And we are going to go to the Logic App Designer. So essentially, this is now where we're going to see that, that flow of create a trigger, set some connectors, and then have our outcome. So schedule, like I said, every day, 8 p.m. Nice and easy. The only thing that is a little bit of a faff in this one is you do need to write the like the TZ time zone. So just make sure you put in the colons and the T's and the Z's at the right place. There may have also not been a slightly edited error where I didn't put a 0, but make sure you kind of fill out all of the fields. Useful for later when you're running the hackathon. So right in the day of yesterday, I think I did this. Yeah. So again, this is going to kick off the thing. So this could easily have been a HTTP trigger, but for this is a scheduled task. Come on, 8 p.m. I want to do left and right to move it along, but I'm afraid it's going to move to the next slide. Cool, got our occurrence. So you're about to see some of those built-in connectors. So these are our actions. There are lots and lots and lots and lots. I knew exactly what I was looking for, but you could look for things from, something happens in SQL to, I mean, name it. There's so many. This one is going to list resource groups. So essentially just does like an API query to the whatever endpoint to go and retrieve a list of resource groups and puts them into like a list. So in a JSON list that we can then pass over. Cool. So yes, the only thing that you do have to do here is specify the subscription, but there's a way around that. You could also just make it do an API query from the first bit, get subscriptions, and then use the value from subscriptions after. Essentially, none of this has to have hard-coded variables. The subscription in this one is the only one. So condition here. So this is going to be our for loop. So for every resource group that has been received from that initial query, we're going to loop or iterate over every one of those, and we're going to look for those tags. Yeah, that's essentially what's happening here. Yeah, I don't know why that kept on popping up. You'll see in a second when we're doing the condition logic. There we go. So just here, I'm just going to pause it. This is very, very, very useful. So you can write a little bit of code. So when I said it's like no code, low code, you can write some parameters or some text to whatever you're adding in for the content. For example, here, I'm going to say, don't just look for the tags, look for a specific tag. There is some syntax, and you may have to go fishing on learn.microsoft.com, but essentially a question mark. So you can see item tags. This will make it not error out if it doesn't exist. Something for later if you're going to use Logic Apps in your Go. So thing question mark, then the object. Carry on. So we're looking for dev if it exists, and for every resource group that did exist in this tenant of none, there was nothing else in this, it wouldn't have errored out. There we go. Yeah, well, actually, whilst we're in the screen, one of the things you can't see when you're on this version of Logic App is all of the properties on the pane when you pop it out. There is a lot more when you kind of jump up that tier from left to right. Yeah. So this is saying that the dev tag must be true. So what I'm doing here is saying, send it to upper. So every character that's being returned back to me, I'm saying it has to be the uppercase of the word true. If we didn't do this, if someone was to write dev, lowercase word true, it wouldn't match. Uppercase T, RUE, it wouldn't match. Also, there is the risk that true could be interpreted as a Boolean value. So on that first one, we said, as long as it's not null. And this one, it's actually specifically requesting it as text. So that's a good bit there. Then the delete resource group, nice and simple. Again, the pulling out the item. So this is the specific resource group that we've got. And then looking at its name, and then going to be running some delete stuff. I'm going to move this along. But yeah, if you've not created a Teams bot before, very, 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 very simple. Essentially, create a team, then you go into the workflows, create a connector, specify as a person, which is what we're doing here. So I'll just show you this bit because it is useful as a good way to send notifications to a team of people. So editing a connector. So what I've done here is I've gone in and added it as, as an incoming webhook. They are being retired, as you can kind of see up there. The new one is a like the workflows one. So with the traditional one, you would see that symbol and it didn't have a person's name attached to it. But the new ones, it'll be kind of registered to an identity. So essentially, it's your version of that that webhook. There was some magic that happened here, and I stopped it because it didn't work. And I've created that new workflow version. And we can see down there, that is the endpoint for the webhook query. That's what we're going to put in a HTTP outcome for the Logic app. So essentially, we're going to send a post message to that endpoint, and I'm going to paste in some data just here that you can get from that link up on Microsoft.com, and I can send it in the Azure user group chat later. But essentially, that the JSON body and like syntax, the schema should be exactly as that. If it's not, it'll not behave as wanted. And that is it. Oh, that's where it failed. The fix was I had to add a 0 in the, yeah, there you go. There we go. So it's saved. And luckily for me and for time, first run, it works. So I'm going to go and create a resource group. And the resource group is going to have that dev tag. So this is what we're polling for every time that Logic app runs. Hey. Does get created. Hey. And so yeah, within every one of the Logic apps, one of the things that you can see up the top is the run. What you can't see here, because we're only running it once, is the run history. Every time of the run history, you can jump into each one of the stages and you can see the output of that stage. So it is very, very, very useful. And you can kind of see right at the end that that Teams message got sent and our resource group was deleted. So end of demo. So next, moving on. So automation accounts. When would we use an automation account? So we've got full logic. So we have access to the underlying runtime. So PowerShell and Python. I've kind of put that up in big there. Hybrid cloud and private networking. You can run single or multiple runbooks. So you could have lots of automation accounts. But let's just say you like having code that's modular. So you've got one thing that's, that thing does its own function, and then you wanted another one to kind of interact with it. You can definitely do that here. And just like Logic apps, they have to have a trigger. So these can either be scheduled or triggered through HTTP. So I've added one thing in because these are great for free, like free automation cases. So you get 500 minutes of process automation and 744 hours of watchers every month. So really, you can kind of use these to do whatever you want. I'm not saying that everything you can achieve is in that time. One of the things that isn't in, you kind of don't think about the timeline it takes for the actual application to run. The app has to start up, complete its job, and then spin down. So there's always like a little bit of like a padding on that time left and right. But 500 minutes does go far. For example, if you were to say, go and query an endpoint to go and get me, I don't know, the latest share price of Microsoft, that would take a couple of seconds. That thing is complete its task, go and store it in a storage account, easy breezy. So here, our example here, and it won't be a play, we'll kind of jump in and have a look. This one is an always up-to-date 365 firewall rules application. So in here, we've got an automation account. We've got a runtime environment. And for me, this is Python, because that's where I do most things in. And inside the runtime is your run book. You can kind of see them on the same level, but a good way to think about them is they're kind of nested. The run book will have access to variables. So just like it could have done in the Logic app, which I hard coded that Teams URL, that could also be going using that same managed identity, go to a key vault, go and get the data and bring it back. And essentially that's what we're doing here. So all I've got in my variables might be the name of that key vault. So go to a key vault, go and get an API key, go and get my Teams URL, because I'm going to use that thing again to go and send a message. And then essentially what's going to happen is I'm going to poll a Palo Alto website that specifies every single 365 Intune IP address and add them into a Cisco Meraki firewall. And there's going to be lots and lots and lots and lots of them. For the sake of this, what we're going to do is not do that on a whole bunch of firewalls. And we're going to use webhook.site. And I don't know if anyone's used that site before, but it's a fantastic site. You can pay for it to always make sure you've always got like the same webhook URL. But essentially, you get an always usable webhook place. So live demo. Here we go. Give me 2 seconds. Just going to drag some stuff over. Need to make sure I'm in the right one. But hey, you can still see that? Fantastic. Whoa, might need to stand up now, sorry. So this is my automation account. What I've done is I've expanded everything that you kind of see on the left-hand side, so you see everything. There is a couple more bits under there, so account settings, networking, settings, locks, automation, pick up the automation bit, help and troubleshooting. But really just going to kind of stay there. It's probably useful. So process automation, what can the automation account do? The automation account has runbooks, like I said, runtime environments, and then we have our history of jobs or the hybrid worker nodes. Like I said, you can run your own compute, run this processing. Then got things like schedules, credentials, other connectors to different things, adding in a certificate if you want to use a specific certificate to go and use like a trusted bunch of variables, other different things down here. But essentially, we're going to be focused on up here. So I've created a runbook. You can see it up here, and the runbook type is Python. So in our runtime, what I've done is I've created Python by hitting create. You go and specify what you want. And essentially, I've got Python 3.10. In here, this is important. So if you've used Python before, Python relies on packages. And you can download your Python packages from pypy.org.com, the website, and you can add them into here. So nice and easy. You can also do that programmatically, and Microsoft have got a link that says how you would go and do that. But essentially, that's what we're doing here. We've got requests and a bunch of things that request relies on. And request is a way that we can go and call an API. And in this, we're using one API to go and send a message to Microsoft Teams. The second is to go and poll the Palo Alto website. some are using the same API method. And then the final thing is to go and make that change across Meraki. For the sake of this, I haven't used a key vault, but it's not that hard to integrate. And I've just used variables and I've hidden them. So I'm just going to put the latest version of this. So webhook.site. So copy that to clipboard. And just going to update this so we can see that happen. Great. So runbook, one of the nice things that you can do here is you can view your code in the portal. So if we wanted to view or edit the code, and what we'll do is we'll just edit in the portal. So there's a whole bunch of Python. And what I can do is I can put this on GitHub and you guys can clone it. But essentially this goes and does all of that work. Like I said, each automation runbook can only have a single file, which is a bit of a pain. But you can have multiple runbooks. But within this, essentially everything to achieve what we're doing. Sorry, a bit quick. But essentially what we're doing at the beginning is we're loading a dummy API key, a dummy API URL, which is our webhook.site, and a Teams URL into our variables. Then there's a function I've created called go and fetch the feed. That goes and gets the data from Palo Alto. Then we create like a big old list. So all of the M365 IPs, all of the Intune IPs, and all of the DNS IPs. And then we go and update the VPN exclusions and respond back with the status code. If the status code says it's all good, send a notification that says, yeah, great, we've done that, all happy. If not, it will say we've failed to do that. If at any point in that execution it fails at all, it will try and send an error. If not, it will send the final error. And if not that, we'll see the error as an actual failure. So we can go through the code of the actual things, but I don't think it's probably that worth it today. What we will do is run it. So what we'll see here is webhook.site, see a query, or see the data, the output of this, hopefully. And we are going, okay. Great, so it's queued our task. So like I said, these can be scheduled, they can be triggered. So this could have easily been me sending a request from Postman to say, go and do a thing. If you've not used Postman before, it's essentially a way of you making API queries. It's still queued. Oh, starting. So this is that container or that underlying compute spinning up the runtime. Oh, and it's succeeded. So once it does run, runs very, very, very quickly. And what we're hoping to see, hey, so in our webhook.site, we've seen an absolute ton of data in the exact way that in this instance, my platform, which I've extended. So like I said, what we wanted you to do is look automation as a way to, extend platforms. This is formatted perfectly so it could be posted to the Meraki firewall API endpoint and in the exact way that we want. So with all of this data as passed from 365. There is a Microsoft feed that you can pull this from. The formatting is a little bit odd, and Paolo make it very, very, very easy for you to add things together. So essentially that's that. I could, if I hadn't closed the browser, show you the Teams notification message, but trust me, there was one. And in that same group that we saw the first notification from that webhook, that Teams bot notification chat message, there'll be another one that said, VPN rules updated successfully, and a nice tick against it. So minimize this. Demo complete. So final one. Hopefully we've still got time. I'll move through this one a bit quicker. But function apps. So function apps are serverless event-driven code, which essentially we can run anything, really. You want to go and poll an API, you want to go and look at the weather, you want to, whatever you want to do. So triggers and bindings, think of the trigger as the thing that happens, and then the bindings are your inputs and outputs. So you want to go and do something, and then you want to go and, I don't know, save some data into a storage account, or you want to then go and take another input from some other source. HTTP triggers, loads of other different schedule mechanisms. There's even some good ones in there for when someone goes and sends a message, adds an entry into SQL. You can have like I can't remember what the SQL syntax is, like watcher. That doesn't matter. But every time like an entry gets made, you can have it go and run like a function. So these for complex workflows and most runtimes. So Python, .NET, Node.js, name it. What I've done here is I've included like the comparison between the few, because there are, like with Logic apps, there are a few different versions. So if you needed to run like VNet integration, you would choose one over the other. The same with functions. So flex consumption is our default. And this allows us to have essentially everything. There are a couple of things it doesn't do, but let's not worry about that now. Consumptions, bit gross, but they do not allow, that's supposed to be down a little bit further, but they don't allow you to integrate with virtual networks. So when you're choosing a consumption plan, just know that if you need it to, I don't know, go and poll a resource using its like private IP address, for example, you can't do that. So if you want to have, I don't know, go and ping something over the SD-WAN or go and access something privately, there'll be a reason for you not to choose consumption plans. Premium app service and container environments, think about that as kind of moving up through like your scalability. However, I would put app service before premium. So you look down at the bottom, so maximum scale out instances. But yeah, essentially the default does most things that a lot of people want to do. You can even, does that. So example. So the example that I created today was SQL just-in-time access. So if you're not familiar with just-in-time access, it allows you to access a VM at any point in time by requesting access to that resource. And as long as you're in like the right group or you have the right permissions, access will be granted for a period of time. So how can we do that? Or how could we automate that for something that doesn't support it? So I chose SQL just because it was nice and easy, and again, it's free and I didn't have to worry about the cost. So this is a user interacting with a Microsoft Teams bot. Teams bot sends a webhook. That webhook calls a HTTP trigger inside a function. Function then goes to the firewall of the SQL server, goes and gets the list of IP addresses. And then with the notification that comes in from the user with its IP address that they're requesting, it will then go and say, okay, are you in that list of IP addresses? Yes or no? If yes, yeah, don't worry about it. If no, it'll go and make an entry inside, actually said yes or no. If you are in that list, it'll go and update your just-in-time access to be a full 2 hours. If not, it'll go and add you in. So the way that it's monitoring that time, adding in a notification into Azure table storage saying this person has requested this IP address at this time. Nice, like 3 feels nice and easy. And then, yeah, goes and makes that change using a managed identity. There's another trigger that is running on a schedule, runs every 5 minutes, and this is called a timer trigger. So essentially a timer trigger just does that. So it's like cron wording, so your star, space, star, space, star, space, star. This timer trigger will run every, like I said, 5 minutes, and every time it runs, it'll go and look at table storage and says, if the time, the expiry time is less than or equal to now, cool, great, all fine. If it's greater than now, then go and get rid of that that entry. So it will then go and find that IP address, remove it from the firewall on the database. All is good. Sends a notification back to Teams. So little demo. Not Q&A just yet. Where are we? Oh, I might need help, computer help. I need to get to the minimized window of Chrome. Oh, there's my taskbar. There you go, that'll do it. That one. That one. Hey, do you know what? I was looking for my, anyway. So this is our logic function app. So here we are. So with function apps, you see a lot more. Everything from OpenAI integrations, custom domains, load testing. These things to me are like the underlying part of anyone that's going to run their own API. So yeah, essentially they're very robust, and what you can, the things you can do in it are quite high. So we've got our two functions within our function app. So think of function app as like the overarching like container, and then I've got the SQL JIT and I've got my schedule. So the SQL JIT app, we can see every time it runs a little bit of code. You only see the blueprint code, and sadly, there's a little bit of a bug where you can't see folders and modularized code, so you can't see everything that's in there. However, I've got VS Code, and we can go and have a look at that. But essentially, this application is importing a couple of different functions. So we've got go and find the HTTP function, and go and find the scheduler function, and go and import them into this code. Oh, this one. And where are we? Oh, sorry, I was in the right place. So we can kind of test run this stuff. So the only thing we can't see is the code. So we'll probably have to go to the code to make this make sense. But with this test run, what will, oh no, I need to actually give it the parameter. I'm going to need Teams. Bear with, I might need to drag this over. 2 seconds. Live demo problems. Oh, here we go. Proof from earlier. So our previous function run correctly. So here, what we're going to do is make a new message. Oh, my life. New message in this post and say, please add my rule to SQL. And we're going to say at SQL JIT, so essentially created in the exact same way as earlier, apart from this time I've created the bot with a name. I'll send out the link or the best way to do that, but essentially very, very easy to create a thing. I think it's called like webhook listener or webhook trigger, but essentially you create this person, you can at them, and whatever you send them will go and then receive that data. So I'm saying SQL JIT, please add IP address 7.7.7.7, and we'll go and post. So in a couple of seconds, as long as all is still good, what we should have is a notification back saying Jonny Winter, access is granted for 7.7.7.7. So So this is our JIT in real time. So let's go and look at our SQL. So here we are. And if we look at networking, JIT 7.7.7.7 has just been entered. And that was empty beforehand, I suppose. For clarity, I should have shown you empty, but it was. We now go back. The other thing that this function did was add a note into a table. And I've called this one SQL JIT. You do not have permissions using your, I can't see. I need to do the bit where I authenticate using my, bear with. Oh, there we go. I couldn't see it on the screen, so I'm looking the wrong way. Switch to access key. Come on. Hey. So 7.7.7.7. So we can see the timestamp it was added, be now, and then the expiry timestamp is in, that should be 2 hours after that. We can't fudge it that well other than changing this in the browser, which again, I can't do. So it's going to change this to be, instead of 18, there we go, push it back. So I've just changed that value to be essentially 5 minutes ago, and I'm going to hit update. If we go back to the function app, we can now run the schedule. So essentially, rather than waiting, and we should be able to see through invocations every time it's been run, and it should be running pretty much continuously. Yep, success, how long it took, yada, yada, yada. And I'm just going to run it now. So not passing any parameters, just run. Essentially, this is just making it look like it's run. Fantastic. So we can see that data down there saying that something's happening. So the first run, because I clicked it like 3 times, running the scheduled cleanup for the expired SQL firewall rules, and then the response status code was 200. And then it ran a couple more times, and you can see that it had no more expired IPs to remove. So if we go back to our resource group and look at our SQL networking, essentially it's been removed. So that was us kind of mimicking how time isn't actually what we said it was, just by changing that value. If we look at Teams, oh yeah, I said it was sent a message to say it's been removed. I didn't do that. So yeah, it hasn't been done. But essentially, yeah, it's achieved its job. We requested access by being a person in this chat. We've then got our access and matched it. There are some great security features that I didn't speak about here just for the interest of time. But one of them is you get like a hashed value. So as long as you get that hashed value and you keep that secret, you wouldn't be able to kind of dummy call that same bot from anywhere else. You had to receive it from the thing that was expecting to be called. Questions? Appreciate it. There's a lot there, and obviously, we've kind of gone at things from a 50,000 foot view, but what can and can't be achieved with Azure Automation?
Can we have a round of applause for Jonny?
Yeah. Any questions for anybody? All stunned to silence. Like some good demos there. Like the SQL JIT one's a good use case because that's not a feature that exists natively in Azure, right? So that's, as you talked about, extending the platform to do things it doesn't do itself. So that's a really good use case. You could whack in an approval to that as well.
Yep.
To make it even more complex and obviously a little bit more security conscious. But yeah, any questions from the audience on anything Johnny's shown? Oh, 2 seconds. Behind you.
Playbook thing, or the second of your logic thing? This,
Automation account.
the automation account, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just still trying to struggle to understand what the value of that is compared to straightforward logic apps or function apps, because it just seems sort of meh.
Yeah, I get that, and like I said, I do feel that if something was to kind of have a sunset schedule, it would make sense to one over the other. I would look at automation accounts if I need to achieve one task very, very, very cheaply, and maybe it's very, very simple. Using like more than one run book at a time, it does make it a little bit more complex, and you have to, each one of them has to spin up and do its own thing. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I do look at using functions or logic apps. And like I said, logic apps, you can do a lot of logic. One thing I would say is interacting and creating functions isn't the easiest if you want to be modular, or you actually want to write code and see your code in the cloud. When you do that via an automation account, like I said, it's one page. You can kind of click it. You can review the code. You can make changes in the web browser. It is quite nice. You can't do that in functions, and you can't have code in the logic apps, apart from like the JSON that sits behind it. So really, for that remote viewing, quick change, something that needs a little bit of complexity in the logic, but it isn't maybe like full complex. Yeah.
No, I'm still struggling to see a use case of that one from both a security and from if I've got an enterprise system that I've written, I kind of don't want to be messing around with them.
Yeah, no, I
changing on live.
I do get that. I suppose the freeness, looking at that is quite good for the amount of hours per month. For me, if I need to write a little bit of code, I'll choose that. Again, I can kind of say to anyone, I'll just have a look at the code. They don't need access like underlying Git. They can just kind of review it, depending on how you're doing like the deployment of which, like I said, could be all automated, could be through Bicep, could be through Terraform, and in which case you need to reference that code somewhere. So yeah, maybe a little bit lost, but yeah, I'd probably say for most outcomes, you're going to be looking at logic apps or functions. So completely understand the confusion.
Yeah, thanks.
I would say on automation accounts as well is they're typically more aimed at that persona of IT pros and sysadmins. Suddenly like run away from it very quickly because you're like, well, there's too much going on here. I just want to put some PowerShell somewhere that does something that I know works on my machine. Automation accounts is that easy get out for them, and it's sort of that bridge. But I'm with you, like, anybody who's been in the game long enough will probably be using functions and logic apps to do the boring bits, and use logic apps to trigger your functions. That's something that I've done quite a lot, taking integrations from like a Microsoft form or something like that through the logic app, and then bang into a function and trigger stuff to happen, and then back to another logic app via a webhook to do something else. So it depends on how you want to stitch it all together. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Automation accounts have limited use cases. I would say it's more persona based than use case.
Now you're saying that the fact that they only really work in either Python or PowerShell, and PowerShell obviously being the language of the sysadmin, does kind of ring true to that. So maybe you could think about it as like you're running a script in the cloud to your, Azure underlying infrastructure, or to do whatever you want it to do. Yeah, good question.
As Jonny went through this, did anything come to mind to anybody, like that light bulb moment of, hey, I could use this to do something in my job? Or have you got anyone want to share an experience of creating something similar using automation?
getting me again. So in my last company, we actually had a complete enterprise system written using function apps. So we went for a serverless approach. The system did everything from drill down reports to testing, exams, videos. It was a complete huge thing, and beautifully it scaled at the end of every month automatically. So whenever the salespeople were doing lots and lots of things, that you just watch the numbers on the automating scale. So function apps are absolutely awesome. But they're a lot more. You can do so much more than just run the odd function. You can actually write an entire enterprise system that does a huge amount of complexity stuff.
Definitely. There's one thing we kind of spoke about, what I showed on the screen, which was durable, meaning that they can live to achieve a long running task, and then you can check on the status of those tasks. So if you was to run, a function that needs to go and poll or make a bunch of changes to 50, 60 API endpoints, or run some complex logic, or go and run these SQL reports and give me a yes or no value, you could essentially send that query to the HTTP endpoint. It will respond back to you and say, yeah, cool, great, I'm processing, I'm on it. But you'll get 200, so you can build that into like your web app logic or your Java app or whatever it is. You can then go and poll it and say, yeah, how are you getting on? And it'll tell you, oh, still processing. And eventually when it says complete, it can kind of feed that back to you. So rather than going through like an event grid or through like something polling something every minute, you get a very, very interactive way of that. And that's very enterprise, that's very modern.
There is one restriction, I think, which is the amount of time that each function app is allowed to run for that thing. So what we did was we had Event Grid, because Event Grid is really, really fast and very easy to set up compared to, say, Event Hub. And again, the scaling and everything was disconnected. So it all just happily worked, and Event Grid just carried on retrying anytime. So I think in 6 years of operation, we had 6 hours downtime, and we were releasing once or twice a week. And that was down to the CrowdStrike or whatever it is that took out most of the emails and everything else that we use in B2C. So they are incredibly resilient and reliable and fast.
Yeah.
So they're awesome.
For devs as well, you get like a full local execution runtime. So you download like the Azure function tools, and you can simulate everything. So you can test everything that you want to achieve in the cloud locally. You can connect up to a storage account, or you can emulate your own storage. They're very, very, very powerful, very extensible. Like I said, work with every language. You can run them in containers. Yeah, you do so much. Yeah.
All right, so I think that's no more presentation, as I'm correct, right? No, so the idea of the rest of this evening is to socialise a little bit more, but we're going to say goodbye to the online world. So thank you those of you joining. Hope you've enjoyed what you've seen tonight, and virtual round of applause for Jonny online. We're then going to break into some smaller groups, and for those of you that want to, you can get some hands-on time, and you can use the technical brains that are in the room. So myself, Jonny, and there's some others as well that will have more their fair share of experiences. Or we can break into some groups and ideate on some crazy ideas on things that you'd like to start automating now that you've seen the art of the possible. How would you go and put this into practice? All with the intent of the craziest idea, as voted for by consensus in the room, will be the victor of a prize as provided by Focus tonight. So, and the prize is not to be sniffed at. Jonny, do you want to share what the prize is?
It is a £50 Amazon gift card.
So we're not talking, a little T-shirt or a sticker. We're talking some serious moolah. So unfortunately, it's from Amazon, but it is what it is. We will use it. So maybe we'll say goodbye to the online world. Grab another slice, a bit of drink, have a little think, and then we'll come back in maybe 5 minutes or so, and we'll have a little bit of a round table and see what the crazy ideas you've come up with. And if you want to chat to any of us, we'll make ourselves available. All sound good? Rock and roll.
Thank you. Yay.